What does it mean to live a rich life? It means brave first leaps, tearful goodbyes, and everything in between. With over 100 years' experience navigating the ups and downs of the market and of life, your Edward Jones financial advisor will be there to help you move ahead with confidence. Because with all you've done to find your rich, we'll do all we can to help you keep enjoying it. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
The world of ancient Greek myth and the wider history of the Mediterranean is and always will be incredibly relevant. Whether you have a casual interest in myth or are a dyed-in-the-wool nerd for the ancient world, you will find your fix with Let's Talk About Myths, baby. I'm Liv Albert, and together with my amazing producer, Michaela Pengowish, we bring the context, intricacies, and the stories of ancient Greece and sometimes the wider Mediterranean to life. Let's Talk About Myths, Baby has something for everyone. Listen to Let's Talk About Myths, Baby wherever you get your podcasts, new episodes every Tuesday and Friday, or find more information at mythsbaby.com.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.
Welcome to the Great Coaches Podcast.
To me, being perfect is not about that scoreboard out there.
This is a chance of a lifetime.
When you can understand the person, you can then work towards a common goal.
We are all on the same team.
Know your role and do it to the best of your ability.
Focus on the fundamentals that we've gone over time and time again.
Your defense has got to be better.
Leave no doubt tonight.
Great moments are born from great opportunity.
Hello and welcome to the Great Coaches Podcast. My name is Paul Barnett, and here on the podcast, we believe that there is no algorithm for leadership. And so we interview great sports coaches from around the world to try and find a couple of ideas to help all of us be better leaders. Our great coach on this episode is Chantal Valle. Chantal completed her master's thesis on coaching leadership. She then set about putting her knowledge into action by taking over one of the worst performing basketball programs at a Canadian university. And that team was the University of Windsor Lancers. Over 6 grueling years, she took the team from, in her words, worst to first, ultimately winning 5 consecutive Canadian national championships. She has captured her learnings from that journey in her new book, Dare to Win. And just before we go to the interview, today's podcast is brought to you by the Macquarie University Business School's MBA program. Designed to empower, challenge and transform, the Macquarie MBA gives you the business skills and knowledge you need to succeed in an evolving global economy. To find out more, search for Macquarie University Business School's MBA. And now, please enjoy our interview with Chantal Valle.
You're listening to the Great Coaches Podcast.
Chantal Valle, good morning our time, good afternoon your time, and welcome to the Great Coaches Podcast.
Well, thank you. I'm super excited to be here. Excited to have a great conversation with Jonathan and yourself, Paul.
Well, speaking of Jonathan, a good morning, my friend. How are you today?
I'm very good, thank you. So looking forward to this.
Welcome back. Yes, we're going to talk to Chantal about her great book, Dare to Win, which we both read. It's just out and we loved it. But before we talk about the book, I always start by asking Chantal about the great coaches that you've known and worked with. And some of them very kindly wrote blurbs for the book. But there are people like Peter Smith from ice hockey. There's Del Harris, Nick Nurse from basketball, from the NBA, gives you a great endorsement as well. I wanted to start by asking Chantal what it is you think the great coaches do differently that sets them apart.
Well, when I was a grad student, that was exactly the question I asked myself. I wanted to learn what makes great coaches successful, and why do some coaches that we know win championship after championship or gold medals after gold medals, and others just don't, or stay mid-pack all the time. So I wanted to become a coach. I wanted to research that, and through my collaboration with Dr. Bloom, professor at McGill University, we went on a 3-year journey of researching the top coaches, but not just coaches, actually businessmen and military officers. But then we honed in and really focused on coaches about what is it that they do that makes them successful. And at the very core of every great coach, probably the most important part is that they all have a vision. And they start and they take a new position, not trying to be the best or not trying to go by the seat of their pants or do a practice for Monday and let's see what we'll do on Tuesday. They start with the end in mind. And they say, I take this program or this team, and in 5 years, I want to be here. I want to have won a championship. I want to be the best in the conference. I want to bring this country to be a gold medalist or this athlete. That's what they do. So there's a setup right from the get-go. And from this vision then, from this mental representation of how they imagine the end to be, they then create a plan. So if we want to be here in 5 years, and we are now here at year 1, what are the steps in between that we're going to have to hit, kind of key performance indicators in order to get where we want to get? And so then the write-up of the plan is very important. And I think that sometimes and it wasn't the case of me being a young grad student, I thought, well, I see all these coaches, I imagine that all they do is motivate people, right? Like it's about motivation, putting people on the same page and you win. But it's a lot more scientific than that. It's a lot more with meticulous work than that. And the time spent on planning the vision is crucial and very important. Now, this only the centerpiece of what coaches do to be successful, and certainly the most important and the one that links everything else. But there's 3 other kind of areas too that they go and that complement this. And one of them is that they are very organized. So there's a part of an organizational skill, part of the job, that it's not just okay to be super high level visionary. You also have to know how to organize daily practices, daily task, weekly task, monthly task, and to be diligent in doing so. So the management and the planning part of it is very important. On the other hand, you have athletes. You deal with human beings. And so now there's a whole section of managing the person and working into making them grow. And what is the individual growth that each of the athlete can gain through that vision is what is going to make the overall vision successful. So how to really go into empowering and imparting and impacting those individuals is very important. And the last category that is, I would think, often forgotten, but one of which I've worked the most on myself, is also about our own personal characteristics as coaches. And so coaches think sometimes that to be good, let's say you want to be a good communicator, you need to be able to be somewhere in the middle, right? Like sometimes you can go a little tough in your communication. Sometimes you have to be a little more understanding. But if you can be somewhere in the middle, you might be successful. And that couldn't be further from the truth. The truth is that on any spectrum, whether it's communication or caring or being tough, whatever it is, we have to be able to be everywhere. And it all depends on the situation. So as a leader, I might be, let's say, more caring by nature. It might be very hard for me to be tough. And if I cannot expand on that side of the spectrum in my leadership, I'm not going to be effective as a leader. And so to really work at working on yourself, to improving yourself, to be able to be everywhere on every spectrum you can think about that involves the quality of a leader is where a lot of work has to be done. And the coach has to be willing to take the road less traveled, I would say, and to look internally. And there's a slogan that I've used that says, once the coach improves, the team does. So, and so that's really important. So those are in a very, high level way, the 4 major point of what has made the coaches that have had success successful.
And so taking those kind of things was the impetus for the book, Dare to Win?
So when when I was a grad student, and we ended up scientifically finding these results, and then, being guided by my supervisor, he said, you got to try to create this into a model. What does it look like? How do these higher order categories, how do these 4 labels mix in with each other? And I came up with creating this model that he thought was really on point with what the research was saying. And so the model is in the book. And then what I did is I then left the academic world and decided I wanted to be hands-on. I want to be a coach. And that's the reason why I wanted to research in the first place what makes coaches successful. So I went on the field, and I was, the book talks about it, how I came in and took a program that wasn't very good and hadn't had a lot of success in about 50 years. And it is not the program I wanted to go to. Obviously, I was hoping to go to a, mid-pack program and build a championship, but we really had to start from the bottom of it. And what I wanted to do, and when I got there, it was kind of a hidden golden opportunity to apply the theory. So in the world of research, a lot of the academic professors or researchers don't really get to apply hands-on what they research on. They find data, they find results, they share, they write books, and it's very valuable. And then a different person might use this for their work. In my case, I did the research, and then I became the practitioner. I became the person that was going to apply what I learned and became the coach that hopefully could apply this, do it, and win championship. And I had set myself a goal of 5 years to turn around the program that was last in the country to number 1 and to win a national championship. And it took us 6 years, so 1 year more, but we did it. And in the end, we ended up winning 5 national championships. We became a bit of this powerhouse in our country. And following this and discussing with Dr. Bloom, that was the main researcher on this topic, we thought, wow, this is very unique. This is a researcher that became a coach that continues to be a researcher. And it was my idea to say, well, why don't we just write a book about this? Now that I've done it and applied it, it's more than just theory. It's applicable principle and certainly something that I have personally experienced. And while experiencing it, have understood the data even better. So let me share through my stories, through inspirational stories and stories of other coaches, how this works and how this came about to be. And that was the premise of the book. And to go further than this, we thought, and that was my experience, is that it is not only about coaching, it's about leading people in the end. And so could that be something that anybody can apply to the business, the military, healthcare, education, or even their own personal life? Can we talk about this transformation process and make it accessible to everybody? Those are coaches, but also those who are not. And we wrote the book with that intent. And as an anecdote, most publishing houses that we connected with were really against the idea. They said, no, you got to go very precise. We want to market. And you understand from business, you want to market to a certain group of people. There was even people saying, we only want you to write a book for female coaches or only for basketball coaches. And we kept to our gut and we kept to our overall vision, which was, no, we want this to be able to be applied in every possible area of life, even for a parent of a family. This is a little team you have to lead there, right? And by keeping it this way, we finally found a publisher that really loved it. And the feedback we've received so far is that it's great for coaches and it's great for everybody else, from parents to business leaders to educator as well, and for personal growth and for business and coaching growth as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you read the book and you talk about your background as coming from the theory side of it. As you look at your continuum as you developed and actually got the experience, you were constantly looking at research to start with. Was there a time when you suddenly it changed and you suddenly became more spontaneous, or you always really kept the research and spontaneity together?
I'd say the latter. So for me, when I needed some direction, I was a new coach and I had never been a head coach of a university team before. So you can imagine I'm thinking, okay, what should I do? So I go back to theory. Okay, I have to have a vision. I have to develop a plan. I have to establish clear roles. I have to look for the player's individual growth. I have to look within myself and my limitations so I don't become the limiting factor of the team. So all these were ideas that were really sprung out of what I had researched. And because of that, it gave me a blueprint, a guide of where I should put my energy and my attention. At the same time, there is a part of it, specifically when we talk about the coach's personal characteristic that is in research, business research actually, is called having individual flair, which means that in any given situation, how should we react as a leader? Business research says, well, we don't really know. It depends. It's a mix of all kinds of variables that the leader needs to have a little bit of individual flair and kind of say, I'm going to go in that direction. And how do you know that you become good is when you know that you've made the right decision looking back. But how do you do this? It's a lot of trial and errors in so many other decisions along the way where you say, oh, I didn't make a right decision here. That was wrong. That was too harsh. That was too easy. And so you develop that individual flair. And so that's more the spontaneity there that in the end, as a coach now, I can say, okay, I think I know in this situation what to do, and I don't need to go back to theory. I'm just going to make either a gut call or an intuitive call, use my intuition, or just be like, this is what I know. And I've become so much better at this that actually it helps me to sleep a little bit better at night too. And we know like leading people is always stressful, but so there's a mix of, as I got more experience in my job, using more spontaneity as well as the research.
Did that make it more enjoyable?
Coaching is enjoyable. It's just always very hard because you always are dealing with humans. And at the end of the day, it's an interesting profession because everybody, and I mean really genuinely everybody, thinks they can coach and do your job better than you can, right? The parents, the high school coaches that look at the university, the people in the stands, the fans, the media, everybody has an opinion, everybody has a criticism. So what has made it more enjoyable for me was not necessarily whether I used theory or spontaneity. It was the ability to recognize that I can feel very confident in my decision and very pleased about it, even if it doesn't please everybody.
Chantal, I want to talk a little bit about sleep. You brought it up.
Yeah.
The Lancers, I mean, we know that the Lancers go on and they win that championship, but I want to get there a bit more slowly if we can, because at the end of the first year coaching, you were 9-13, which wasn't a bad start given where the program was coming from. But in the book, you say you were working 100 hours a week.
Oh, yeah.
What changed in your second year to keep you sane and to keep the team moving forward?
I didn't write about this in the book particularly, so it's a very good question. And let me open up. I've had several discussions with so many coaches across the globe, whether we're at the World Championship or whether we are coaching university sport or professional men. And we always discuss, is there such a thing as balance? Does that even exist in coaching? Can we reach that? Is it possible? And somewhere I fall between, I don't think so, and probably not. So, and it's interesting because it's such a value. We need to be balanced. And I don't know that coaches or the coaching profession lends to that. During the competitive season, everything needs to be made so that you can win games and tend to the flock, so to speak, when the players aren't doing well or your staff, like you're this person and you have to work sometimes 100 hours a week, and it's not super healthy. And I'm saying this cautiously, but also with the fact that if anybody is a young coach out there and wants to start coaching, like, it is extremely demanding and it is a consuming profession because you're constantly being criticized by everybody that you're around. I was consulting a young soccer coach yesterday, actually, and he was sharing with me how nobody's ever happy with him. It might be the assistant coaches, it might be the president of the club, it might be the players. And I said, yeah, it's very tough. So how do you find balance? And my response is somewhere in during the season, it might mean that there is 80, 100 hours to put out there, less sleep, more stress. But in the off season, can we really just unhook for a second? And if we can do that, I think that maybe the balance is more on a yearly basis than a daily basis. And that's how kind of I've got to understand my job and kind of prepare myself every year. When September comes around in Canada, it is full out season. And I know that until December, because we have a little bit of a break at Christmas, during the holiday season, then it's going to be really difficult, really hard. But the other thing that I've applied to myself to try to help is a little bit of a cadence where I really try to work 6 days a week. However many hours is needed to be, I put it in, and I try to not work the 7th day. And I put my phone away, and this is kind of a team thing where we said, hey, for us, it happens to be between Saturday after the game and Monday morning. So a little bit more than 24 hours, where the players know they don't expect a text from me. They can't text me either. We wait until Monday morning. And it's been really, really good for the players' health and for our health as a staff to say, wow, we're off our phone for 24 hours and it's a time to spend with our family, a time to rejuvenate. And so during the season, I might still work 80 to 100 hours a week, but I do it in 6 days instead of 7. And I force myself with that day of rest. And it's been really, really, really positive in terms of me feeling healthier and sleeping a little bit more throughout the week, actually.
You talked a lot right at the start about creating the vision and the plan that goes with that. You also talk in the book a lot about visualization and imagery. And can you just talk a little bit about that and why that's so important to the team?
Yeah, so again, a bit of an interesting way of approaching challenges in life is to use metaphors. I think what the research shows is that it helps reduce the stress level of the athletes when they can refer to a metaphor as opposed to, oh, we got to go win a game. We will use things that we have to summit. And when you help the brain move into a kind of a other kind of language that would use terms or images or vocabulary that is associated with what we have to do in a stressful manner, which is winning championship, but using it in a way that is not talking about that directly, the nervous system tends to reduce in terms of stress level. And so there's a little bit more awareness and a little more energy to focus actually on the actual fact of performing as opposed to stressing about performing. Does that make sense? So it's a method I've loved using and that's been, funny at times. And I remember there was one time trying to win our first national championship, and our player was so engaged into the climbing Mount Everest. That was the image we had that year, and we knew we had a team that could do it, that she got interviewed at the end of the game, and they asked, well, what happened there? Like, you were up in the game, then you came down, but then you came back and won the game. And her interview sounded something like this. She says, oh, you know what? We were all really like kind of hooked together, holding that string across the edge of the mountain. But suddenly there was ice palette and this big storm, and we're stuck in the middle of the storm. And then we almost fell, but we kept going and we submitted. It made no sense if nobody had any idea what we're talking about. But we all laughed because she was so bought into that image that she herself didn't even think that it would make no sense to the auditors and the viewers on TV to see this. But that's how bought in this athlete was. And so it is a very positive thing to use metaphor and to use something different to reduce stress. In terms of visualization, even at the core of our research model, which is a vision, the idea is that being able to create a mental image of what we would like to see happen in the future is proven in research to have such a great impact into our actions that we're going to take to commit towards that vision, that it's not just about writing something down, it's about seeing it in your head, sometimes about feeding it with your emotions. It's about knowing what would it feel like if I won a championship, and to sit with this and to start to feel the euphoric excitement. And when a person can get there, there's a true mental picture created into the brain. And that is a powerful tool that is then being used by your brain to help you to direct yourself in that direction and to increase the commitment level of an athlete towards this goal. And so the idea of imagery, mental performance, and using metaphor has something, it has an effect on the human body that is greater than just the regular motivational, we got to win because we got to be better or something like that. So that's a very powerful tool to use for coaches.
Yeah, and you sort of expand on that in the book, talking about culture over results every time. And that really ties back into that. But just go more into the culture that you were trying to achieve there, because there was a great story that you met the parents of one of your players after about 6 years with you. And he was quite teary about how he described what you created.
Yeah, that's right. So one of the things, and it's part of that individual growth category, is that how are we going to make sure that the athletes that we have are growing as people? And often we forget, whether we're in business or coaching, we think about winning and we forget the importance of having these human beings that are under us to blossom. And so we were just winning. We just won our first national championship, and this player in particular, was had been very homesick in their first year, almost unable to play in some games, to becoming a team captain, to be an unbelievable strong leader, and to be one of the reasons why we actually won. And her dad was a pilot in our Air Force here in this country, and flew in actually to grab breakfast with us, saying that he wanted to thank me for the work and for the championship, for the experience that he had a chance to experience through this as well. But what was very touching in that discussion, we were sitting in the restaurant, was not that he thanked me about the championship. He said, 5 years ago, I gave you a child, and 5 years later, you're giving me back a woman. And I thought, oh, wow, that's incredible. I mean, he got teary, I got teary. His wife was there, Emily Mapler was there, and it's a very iconic moment for me. Because funny enough, in that time, even though I knew that I had to involve myself in developing the players outside the court, I was young and I was a lot more focused on winning, right? But I guess I had done it the right way. And when he said that to me, it was like an eye-opener, like, this is really what this is about. And further to that, I had a chance to consult with some businesses, and one of them was a really well-known business that actually is worldwide, and they were asking me, they want to recruit university students. And I remember speaking with one of the executives, and he says, you recruit across the world, we want to recruit students, but they're coming into us and they want to start and making six figures. They want to start with, having the big salaries. They refuse the entry position as we get to this new generation of graduate students. How can we do this? How can we tell them, come work with us and start at a lower salary? And I said, think about this model. If you're offering money only, we're only talking about results. But if you offer the student, the graduate, an experience where that graduate person can then maybe learn from some executives, maybe you bring them on a trip, there's some individual growth plan put into place for them, it changes the way they're going to perceive the culture of your company. And I think with that, they would agree to a lower salary. And that's exactly what they did. And they became very successful recruiting the top students at a lower salary because they were giving them life experience. And human beings love that. They want to grow in the end. Yeah, of course, they want to make money. Yes, of course, they want to win. But at the end of the day, they want to grow. And when you can offer them both, and one being the byproduct of the other. So my saying is always that winning championship is the byproduct of investing in individuals. And I think having people in your company that are going to be loyal and work for a long time is a byproduct of investing in individuals. And I think now we have a winning formula in terms of developing the culture of our organization.
Can I pick up on growth, actually? Because in the book, actually one of my favorite parts in the book was where you talk about the fact that you became the limiting factor for the team's success. And it was quite a powerful realization that you had, and it led to change. And I'd like you to tell us, if you could, about what you learned and what you did about it when you had this insight that you were the limiting factor.
It's a great story. I had an unbelievable athlete on my team that then became an Olympian. And so a starting point guard on our Olympic team. So you can imagine the level of that player. And so she's playing for my team for a good 4 years at that point, and I cannot coach her. I mean, we just butt heads. In my view, she's absolutely uncoachable. I tell her so. I think that she doesn't listen to me. She's challenging every decision that I make. And I continually tell her to go sit down with a sports psychologist and to make sure that, she can learn how to respect authority and learn how to be coachable and not be as the way that she is, basically. And I think we've all had these athletes under us as coaches. So you all know what I'm talking about. And for 4 years, I am adamant that she has to go see a sports psychologist. In somewhere during the 4 year, I start to look around and suddenly I see this athlete who listens to my assistant coach Tom, and she listens to my assistant coach Josh, and she listens to my assistant coach Mike. And I realize, she only doesn't listen to me. And so it dawned on me, could I be the problem? Like, could this be that I don't have the leadership skills that are developed enough to be able to lead such a strong person? And when I realized that, I actually made a meeting with our sports psychologist, and I sat in the chair and I said, help me, I cannot coach this person. And that was the start of a whole, new world for me, where I realized I have to develop, I have to be better. And the actual passage that you're referring to is a different story, but I thought that one was cool as well, because it seemed to never end. And the other one was that I wasn't experienced enough. I didn't know how to win a championship, and I had the horses to do it. I had the team to do it. I had the players to do it, and I freaked out in the game. I messed up my calls. I started to be too energetic. I started to yell. I started to kind of lose it a little bit. I had the verge and the thought, oh my God, I think we're going to win. And going back after, of course, we lost the game by 1 point, and I was, felt it was my fault. At that point, the same thing happened. It was a whole self-introspection about, I'm not ready. I was the limiting factor in that particular championship because of my lack of experience. So not to be too hard on myself, like experience has to be gained in playoff situation, in high level stake, in national championship games, in, nationally televised games. But also, what can I do again to improve myself so that I can do this better? And then, identifying with my assistant coaches, something that we call the one voice. When we get under a stressful situation, everybody wants to take over. And we all take over. I took over, they took over, so it was all chaotic. And so we all as a staff became the limiting factor of that particular championship. And so now that we had experience, we call this one voice, which meant when we get under stressful circumstances, only one person talks. And most likely it's probably going to be me as the head coach, but if it's another voice, it's okay. But it cannot be 2-3 voices. It has to be streamlined throughout the staff, and one person will address this, and that helped us also get better at that point.
Quick question. When was the last time a display ad changed your mind? Now think about the last time a friend told you about something they loved. Different feeling, right? That's how podcast advertising works. A host who's built real trust with their audience talks about your brand in their own words, in their own voice. It doesn't interrupt the experience. It's part of it. With Acast, you can access the world's largest podcast marketplace. Choose the right shows, the right audiences, the right format. Then watch the data tell you it worked. You're not buying impressions. You're buying influence. Learn more by visiting acast.com/advertise.
As part of that transition, you went out looking for mentors and support. That was obviously quite a mindset change. And what were your real goals to get out of that?
Yeah, again, it was going back to that theory. So that was a place where I felt that was the limiting factor in terms of my lack of experience, where I remember thinking, well, how these coaches that had never won end up winning their first championship? Everybody at some point wins their first one. And they all had come out with an important part of that, which is they all had mentors. They had people that they could bounce idea off that was apart from their staff, apart from their spouse, apart from their regular circle, just a real good mentor. And I thought, well, I don't have a mentor. I don't even know who to talk to about this that's not related to my coaching staff or my family. And so I contacted a national sporting organization, and I went and asked them, could you give me a mentor? Does that exist? Like, how do I go about this? And it was funny because I had a list of really good coaches in our country that I really was hoping were going to be my mentors. And I suggested that list to them. Can you put me in touch with them? And in the end, it was all no. They all said no. And so they came back to me with this name, Don McRae. And I looked, and it was this older, retired coach that had coached in the 70s and 80s. And I thought, he is, I think he was 75-year-old at the time. And I thought, oh my God, like, he's not going to understand today's world. He's not going to understand. But with no choice, I met with Don, and it was a match made in heaven. Don is still my mentor now. He's helped me and is part of all the championships that we've won. And the incredible wisdom of somebody that has done the job for so many years was so beneficial to myself, my career, my team, the program. And it has given me a lot of motivation into continuing and pushing and getting myself better. And also, he's normalized a lot of the situation I go through. When I think it's the end of the world because something happened, he says, yeah, that happened to me 5 times in my career. What? Oh, no way. Tell me more. So just the normalization of a lot of emotion that goes with the ups and downs of coaching. And after I met with Don and continued to meet with him regularly, I found myself 3 other mentors for particular areas of my life, not just coaching, but I want a mentor for our offense. And I want a mentor for our statistical analysis. Not just people I hire, but literally, like, tell me, how would you do it? Like Lucas, who is an engineer, never coached in his life, but he can actually look at data and look at stats and give me his opinion on where he feels the trends are going. And I want to hear that. I want to listen to that. So I equipped myself with I call this in the book an empire of mentors that were not coaches, that were outside of my circle, that I would meet with on a regular basis, and that really helped me form and direct my staff and my team better.
No, absolutely. Totally agree with that. And then going the other way of all that learning, you also then talk about the traps over truth and grit. How did you put that into play with the team? Because one of the things you do say is you expect people to have a lot of self-confidence, but a lot of people just don't have that confidence, particularly with some of the athletes.
It's shocking to me. I've coached men and women's basketball, amateur and professional. And one of the recurring theme in all genders and all levels is often a lack of self-confidence. And people wouldn't think that could be true. What, this guy is a professional male basketball player. This woman is an Olympian. And yet everybody lacks a bit of self-confidence. And to be honest, if I look at myself, sometimes I do too. And I think we all do lack some self-confidence, whether we realize it or not, or express it or not. And that was really interesting, because most of these people have so much talent, right? To make it that far, to be at this level's team, you got to be a very talented individual. And Dr. Angela Duckworth is a researcher on grit. And she made research in West Point Academy onto how do the cadets stay that long? What makes people stay and graduate from these very tough military training that they offer in the United States? And everybody thought, well, they're probably really mentally tough, or they're probably really motivated, or they're probably very smart, or they're probably very physically fit. And none of them came through. And what came through is that they just are gritty people. They're gritty. They have grit. And when I look at my team and I see when we won championship, it wasn't the talent. It wasn't the self-confidence. It was our grit. It was our grit that got it through it. And that's really important, because it's something that, how do you get grit? Well, the good news is grit can be developed. It's not just something that's innate. I mean, you might have some predisposition to be grittier than others, but like, you can train your mind, you can train your body, you can train yourself to become more gritty. And to get back to self-confidence, it's a little linked to this, but if you find that you lack self-confidence into something, just stop and just think about the grit that you need to continue to achieve your goal, not about the feeling that you feel that you might not be confident at the moment, and go get it. So that's an example of a mental shift. And to go back to the trap versus truth, the trap would be, I don't know if I'm good enough to do this. And we have these thoughts, and sometimes the thoughts are unconscious, which is difficult to realize. So it's trying to become conscious with how we think. I don't think I can win this championship. I don't think I'm a good coach enough to lead this team. I don't think I can get that job. I don't think I can make that bucket. I don't think I can be on that team. Those are traps. And when we can put that and replace them by truth, and a truth would be a statement that exhibit something that is more truth. Like, no, I am a great coach, or I am a great athlete. I can do this. Or let me focus on grit. I am a gritty person, even though I feel this way. Let me focus on that. So like to change those trap versus truth can be very helpful. It's a mental exercise that everybody can do, and they don't need to be athletes to do so. But then to help the body refocus and the mind to be going in a direction, and the action will then follow towards better results.
Well, I want to talk about grit. You bring the idea of grit together into overtime. And in overtime, you say you have to navigate this fine line between urgency and composure. I'm just curious what you've learnt about the mindset shift that needs to occur in overtime for you to be successful.
Yeah, and you're talking about the overtime in the book, the section, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So the book was about writing the story of the transformation of a program that was last into first and multiple national champion. And that lasted 6 years. And the application between the theory and practice, so a very motivational story throughout. But then I added an overtime section. And in the overtime section, it was me that was then taken from my work at a university level and brought into coaching men's professional basketball. And the university literally lended me for 1 year the opportunity to leave without losing my job and to establish and build a brand new franchise of men's professional basketball. A fun story for you guys is that prior to this, I actually spent a couple of months in Australia, touring all the men's professional teams, whether it was in Cairns or Townsville or Melbourne or Sydney. So thanks for all the coaches out there that, hosted me to try to see how to do it with those guys, the professional. It was going to be about a similar level, but maybe with a little bit more Americans and more former NBA players or G League players. And so the task at that time was to start a franchise that did not exist, build it from the grounds up, and put a product on the floor within 6 months. And my challenge for me was like, wow, how do I take what I've learned in theory, what I've applied over 6 years, and make it happen in 6 months? How do I do that? And I was hired as the GM and the head coach. I did a dual role, so I had to find the products, the players, sign the contract, deal with the agents, manage the wallet of the team, really making sure that we didn't go over the cap in terms of salaries. It was extremely challenging, and I remember at some point telling the team president, like, look, I don't know why you hired me, because I know nothing about men's professional basketball, and I'm not really sure where to start. And he says, well, that's your job, figure it out. So I really had to use grit. I really had to use to not let those thoughts about I'm not good enough, it's not gonna work, and be like, I have no other choice. And guys, there was an added layer, to be honest with you, that I was a woman. And for me, I was the first woman in the world to be a GM and head coach of a men's professional team. And it was well publicized across the world, and especially in the United States and Canada, which, without knowing, added a huge amount of pressure to me. Because I thought, oh my goodness, if I fail, then everybody's going to think no women can do this, right? It's going to be the where we knew women cannot coach or be GM of men's team. So suddenly there was nothing else that existed. I had to be really focus and use composure and use grit and not lose it, and not let my nervous system take over and just panic, and just be really calm. And I might have learned to meditate during that time as well, right? And to really control this and to put a product on the floor on game one. I will always remember it's opening day, and it's a big show, and we've got thousands of fans, and all I'm thinking is, I hope we win. Like, I hope we win the first game, and we did. And we brought the team all the way to the national championship final game in that first year. And so for first year franchise, it was extraordinary. It was a great success. And it was, again, applying the principles of what I had been able to experience myself and research into a shorter period of time and be successful with it.
Oh, it's a terrific story. It's a great part of the book. It's sort of like a second story in the book. It comes right at the end, and it really brings together so many of the learnings you've had on your journey along the way. It was, as the father of two daughters, I also found it fascinating to see your journey as a female leader. But I'll hand back to my friend Jonathan for another question.
You talk about grit and determination, but you also talk about truth and harmony. How do you address that?
This is such an important factor, and it's so fun that you asked this question, Jonathan, because again, yesterday when I was consulting one of our professional men's soccer coaches here in the region, we talked about that. And it is really difficult. It seems, of course, we always say the truth, and of course we operate in truth. It's actually very difficult to use truth over harmony. Because as a human, we want people to appreciate us. We want people to like us. We want our team to be cohesive. And so often, the temptation in the one-on-one meeting with a player that is disgruntled or asking for more playing time or asking what they can do to play more, which is always what the discussion ends up being about, even though we say it's not about that, it's always about that. How are they going to get to play more and be used more? It's actually really challenging as a coach to say the truth. And the truth is, we may not use you more, actually. The truth is somebody else is better than you. The truth is you're actually the third sub in the rotation. And it's very hard to say that in a loving way, a supportive way, a non-judgmental way, a way that the athlete is still going to like you. So the definition of clear roles in a team is probably one of the hardest things to do, and one of the things that most coaches forget about. And I certainly did as well sometimes in my career, say, well, this year we're just going to go about and see what happens. And it was a disaster. So it's, it's so much more easier to say, okay, here's who's going to start for the season. Here's who's going to be the first sub. And here's going to be the third sub. As a third sub, you probably are not going to play unless there's an injury or foul trouble or we're up or down 20 in the game. And to say this to an athlete in front of you is challenging and it's tough. And the athlete often is going to feel not valued, not respected, not wanted, not liked. And so now there's a period of grieving where the athlete has to be, do I accept this role or do I not accept this role? And as a coach, we need to leave time for this to happen. And so I've had athletes, I'd say about 99% of the time will go, they're frustrated, they'll think about it, I tell them to think about it. And by the time they come back, they say, okay, I'll prove you wrong, but I accept my role, or just, okay, I'll go with it and things will be good. And in either cases, this is the best case scenario. Sadly, sometimes some players say, you know what, heck with you, this is not what I want, and they move out, they move on. And that's also okay. It's just maybe a little bit more harder on the coach. Well, you don't want to lose anybody or you don't want to have anybody not like you, but it does happen. But that truth, while it seems at sometimes that it just breaks the harmony between the coach-athlete relationship or breaks the harmony between the athletes and their relationship, actually overall brings a more cohesive team and a more harmonious team. And so to always make sure that the truth is spoken is very important into that human dynamic and relationship. And I certainly encourage the coaches to consider that very seriously, even though sometimes it's going to be things that are going to be said that people do not want to hear.
As a small business, you can't afford downtime. Thankfully, with AT&T Business Internet, downtime is a thing of the past. We used to put a baby monitor next to the router. If the router started blinking or beeping, someone would have to sprint to reset it. Now we've got AT&T Business Internet, a reliable connection so orders keep coming in. The monitor's still on, really loving that white noise. Although HR said no to hiring an office baby.
AT&T Business Internet. Connecting changes everything.
While every other channel is fighting for your customers' attention, podcasts are where they've already given it. No one accidentally listens to a podcast for 45 minutes. They choose to be here. They trust the voice in their ears, and when that voice talks about your brand, it doesn't sound like advertising. It sounds like a recommendation from a friend. Acast gives you that trust at scale. Digital precision, host-read authenticity, and performance data that proves it worked. Don't fight for attention. Buy it with Acast. Learn more by visiting acast.com/advertise.
So Chantal, probably the last question from my side before handing it back to Paul. I mean, there's so many insights, so many learnings. What would you say to your young version about the learnings on reflection and, particularly the men's team? I mean, the power of women really comes through, but what would your advice be?
It's so interesting. For me personally, I do this a lot actually, and I try to think back about all these years. I've coached now professionally for over 20 seasons. And some of it, like you mentioned, was with the men's professional team, which was a huge challenge. The amount of stress I went through was so not worth it. I wish I would have done it without stressing as much as I did. And it's really hard to understand that, because I think when we're in it, we want to be so good, and most coaches are really, like most athletes, really really hard on themselves. And how could I have had done this more in a more healthy way for Chantal the person, And the only way I can think about it is when I think about the success I've had. I think now, why did I stress so much? See, I had success. I continue to have success. I am a good coach. And so when I go now sometimes through some games or some important playoff situation and I feel myself being stressed, I'm like, Chantal, don't even get there. Calm yourself, breathe. Don't get hooked all into your fight or flight nervous system reaction. Stay poised, because you're just going to be great. And so if I could have understood this at the beginning of my career, I might have, had a bit less gray hair wrinkle, although it's not that bad yet. But
You're looking great compared to us.
There's still that wish of, I think I could have done it a little bit better for my own personal health.
Chantal, you're only still young in your coaching journey. You say 20 years, but you really don't have the grey hair yet. That's all ahead of you. You've got multiple championships to your name. You've broken records, you've smashed ceilings coaching the men's team. You've written a great book. You did a master's. But what's the legacy you're working towards? Have you taken time to think through that and what you would like it to be described as?
I want to thank you for asking this question, because yes, I have thought about it, and it came after and during the time that I coached the men. So I coached the men in 2019, which is already 6 years ago. And I had an unbelievable experience. I mean, I coach guys that are now in the NBA. I coach guys that played in the NBA as Exhibit 10 or short contract. I've coached guys that were cut from the NBA. I've coached guys that represent a national team. Unbelievable experience, and loved it. And what I saw happen to me while I was doing this was suddenly I was treated differently. I was the only woman as part of a group of, 30 traveling men, doctors, therapists, assistant coaches, professional players. And what happened is that we travel across the country, suddenly we are put in first class. We get a free meal. We get given a bottle of wine. We get sponsors and partners wanting to partner and sponsor us without even us asking. We get fans looking for autograph without even knowing us. We get all kinds of these unbelievable privileges that I've never experienced as a professional woman. I've coached professional women as well. I've coached a national team where nothing like this would ever happen. I mean, we didn't ask. For example, I will remember to this day, we're walking in an airport and people see us, are you guys a basketball team? Yeah, okay. Guys, they're professional. We don't have to make the line. They put us straight to the plane. It was, what is going on? And at the moment when I'm experiencing this, I'm thinking, this is amazing, right? I get more status. I get a little bit more money. I get more recognition. It becomes so much easier to find money, sponsorship, and people interested in investing in us. I love this. I am in Nick Nurse's office, and you mentioned, I'm very grateful that he wrote the foreword to the book. I have access to the NBA practices. I'm on a complete different level, and it was super attractive to me. And when this ended, and we went to the championship final, my contract gets renewed, and I get offered the position to continue full time with that professional men's team as a GM and coach. But the school, the university, has lended me for 1 year, so I have to go back to my position. So I have a decision to make. And I battled for months. For months, I kept both. And I thought, oh man, I love coaching the women, but this is really cool. I'm on a different level. And it came to this, and that's why I answer your question through this long introduction. It came to I'm a very good coach. I have the chance to move into what everybody would consider a step up. And I don't feel good about it. As a woman, me choosing to go coach the guys because it seems to be better, higher, easier, more status and more money didn't feel right. Most coaches in our field will do that. They'll move and they'll coach the guys and this thing's a step up. But hey, I've coached our women. I've coached our national team. We deserve the same treatment. There's nothing different. They're human beings like these guys, but there's not as much opportunity for them. So when we finish university basketball for these women, they cannot go play pro in Canada. They have to go to different countries, but the guys can play pro here. There's all these things where the women's career are being ended and they cannot earn a living as much as the guys. Or on the world stage, if they do have a professional career and the men do have a professional career, the men will end their career with usually millions of dollars in their pocket and they can retire, but the women has to go back to school and find a second career. So it just dawned on me that what I wanted to do and the pivot that I made at that point was, how do I, Chantal, become involved in changing this narrative and putting importance to women and women's sport and helping create more parity and an engagement of the fans, of the brand, of the businesses, of the partners, and saying there's a really good product out here as well if you just would take time to look and invest. Because if you look at the Olympics, everybody watches the Olympics and you get excited for women or men. But in professional world, you don't. Until maybe Caitlin Clark comes around and she changes the face of it. But that's the point, right? Suddenly people that don't even know basketball knows Caitlin Clark. Why? Because the media, her talent for sure, but also the media has now highlighted her, put her out there and put on the same level as some of these amazing male athletes. So one of the things I did is use some of the connection I had and created a bit of a business to invest in women's professional sport opportunities. And so far in my business, we've invested in Unrivaled, which is a 3-on-3 women's league in the States. We invested in a team of Montreal soccer called Les Roses, the Roses, which is our new Canadian women's soccer Super League, Northern Super League as well. And where else can I help gather people that are interested in investing in women's sports so that these women can have opportunities to be seeing they can pursue a professional career like their brothers have or their cousins have or their fathers have that was not available to them before. That's my legacy that I would like to leave, and be part of a person or a group and continue to be part, maybe be the person that can amass enough wealth one day, if maybe for the purpose of how many young women's life can I change so that they can have a professional career that they can sustain themselves like I had the chance as a coach professionally. I don't have to earn any other money. I earn enough as a coach to my entire life is in professional sport. I'm very lucky. And I'm very lucky as a female. It's rare. So I want to offer this to other women around as well.
It's not only a great legacy you're aiming for there, but it's a wonderful vision, which is where we started this podcast. So I think that's probably a great place for us to close it. Chantal, it's a great discussion. It's a wonderful book. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I read it in a couple of sittings on a long flight. We'll put the links to it in the show notes. It's called Dare to Win, and I highly recommend it for everybody.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Jonathan.
No, thank you. Thank you. It was fabulous.
So, Jonathan, Chantal, what did you think?
A very, very impressive lady. And, her discussion at the end about her legacy, most times you ask people about a legacy, they don't want to talk about a legacy, but I think her legacy about women and investing in women was just very, very impactful. So I thought she was good there. I just think her desire for learning and her determination to get better is a good role model for everyone. And there was a lot of vulnerability there because she had to accept that she wasn't the perfect person, but she accepted that and she went looking. So I thought those were good. And the other learning is just how she deals with young people. I mean, there's always the challenge about Gen X's and how do you relate to them? But she had a lot of examples there of how good it was. So I thought a very, very, very impressive person, and I think the way she communicated was incredible.
You get the sense that she's got a long way to go in her career, and there'll be many changes, swings, and there'll be a lot of upward trajectory for her as she goes along. I love the way she sort of reframed a lot of stuff. Talked about grit. When I was listening to her, I sort of wrote down that great Billie Jean King quote, "Pressure is a privilege." And I just felt that she embraced that, like she liked the pressure. She saw it as a means through which she would grow and the team would grow. So her whole mindset really, I thought, was fantastic too. And then this whole idea at the end there about mentors normalising novel situations and helping you build confidence was interesting too, especially given the work that you do as a mentor and as an executive coach.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think the idea of going back and talking to her again and getting her involved in other interviews, I think would be good. She's got a lot of insights and a tremendous amount of experience.
She does indeed, but I should bid you farewell. We will look forward to doing this again soon when another book comes in for us to review together. But thank you for taking part today, Jonathan.
No, thank you very much indeed. It was great. Okay, have a good day. Enjoy.
What does it mean to live a rich life? It means brave first leaps, tearful goodbyes, and everything in between. With over 100 years' experience navigating the ups and downs of the market and of life, your Edward Jones financial advisor will be there to help you move ahead with confidence. Because with all you've done to find your rich, we'll do all we can to help you keep enjoying it. Edward Jones, member SIPC.
Working on building a dream space, but don't know where to start? At the Home Depot, we can help you bring your dream project to life. Whether you're building a backyard oasis, a podcast studio, or a wellness space, we've got everything you need in store and online. With project guides and free delivery options, it's easy to go from dreaming to doing. The Home Depot, how doers get more done.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
Do you want to know the best part about being married to a woman?
That there's no man involved?
I mean, true, but I was going to say that it's a sleepover every single night with your best friend.
Oh yeah, that part's cute too.
I'm Taryn, she's Cammie, we're married, and staying up is our weekly pillow talk out loud with you.
We're giggling, we're gossiping, we're arguing.
Classic marriage stuff. Just having fun being wives while we navigate growing up and building a family together.
Then our sleepover grows. Our listeners call the PP hotline with their own gossip, burning questions, late night spirals, all the stuff they'd only tell their best friends.
So it's a private sleepover, but you are invited. Staying Up with Taryn and Cammie, new episodes weekly. Follow wherever you listen.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. Acast.com.